Hello, this is Marshall Limited, back for another video. As requested by NASMAP5358, before he changed his mind, but I'm going before he changed his mind, next time we're doing timing. We're doing Komi. To be exact, a Stalina, pro-Stalina version. So, the New Republic. The failure of Nikolai Bukharin, the German invasion, and the defeat of the West Russian Revolutionary Front against the German Reich bled the people of Russia far too much. Subjecting them to unimaginable horror and destruction for little gain, rather than the workers' utopia promised by the Soviet government. The communist experiment ended in failure as warfare scorched the Russian scorched West Russia for the second time in 2 decades. The war The political failure of the front, the final assassination of Alexander Ryakov, and the bombing of the Presidium of the West Russian Revolutionary Front marked the last straw for the Komi government. Nikolai Alexeyevich Voznesensky, the newly appointed head of the Komi Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic, took exclusive executive action and declared independence from the front. Aided in his operation by a slew of former West Russian Revolutionary Front politicians, including Mikhail Andreevich Suslov, foreign minister of the front, and Andrei Alexandrovich Zandov.
Sorry, there is nothing to repeat.
Strange. A prominent officer of the Comintern. Climate of extremism. With the secession of the Komi Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic from the front under the newly declared republic, the loss of yet another capital, the political cohesion of the front dissolved, and the more separatists ate away at the West Russian Revolutionary Front's armies. Before operation could be launched, cut down the rebellions and the warlords. With the democratic nature of the Komi Republic becoming well known throughout West Russia and the developed city of, I can never say this name, Sitkevka, I can't say it, becomes swollen with refugees from other less accommodating cellmates. Climate of political radicalism began to fester within the republic. Led by Voznesensky's collaboration with Zadov's communists and the underground influence of extremist politicians who've been bent on setting free many of the main former gulags in the region. The state of affairs. The state of the republic in 1962 is hardly one of conductive and functional democracy. Crime is at a recent high, with constant paramilitary street battles shattering the silence on the streets of Sietka. The plots of shadowy ideologies are constantly pit against each other in the form of assassination, theft, fraud, assault, extortion, and conspiracy against the Republic. The Komi Republic's politicians are infamous for a particular nature that seems to run through the Republic as a whole, a pseudo-addiction to scheming, backstabbing, and power games. So basically it's a free-for-all in pub everywhere. Regardless of whether they personally tolerate such demands, tolerate underhanded tactics, the environment of a republic demands these tendencies, and so politicians which survive this unimaginable stressful environment tend to forge into a metaphorical diamond, master schemers and maneuvers who can manipulate entire parties beneath their thumb. So the game players are the center. Despite a wide variety of democratic parties, the issue which cleaves movement apart in Komi, the saving grace of the Republic, is that democracy too is a political question of hot button. The intensity of the efforts to tear down democracy has forged the otherwise disparate centrist parties into ramshackle coalition to preserve the electoral system at all costs. The fight for capitalism and the ruling People's Democratic Socialist Party or in Russian translation, Demokratическая Socialistическая Народная Партия. The Union of Young Reformers, or SMR. No idea what that translated into Russian is, but the ones we want is the PSD, and which is the Sovereign Democratic Party, have all long-tempered allies in an environment at the Republic. The left, the Communist Party of Komi, after time, and I think I'll come back to Komi to play as the Communist Party of Komi under Zandrov. It is notable in that it is the most united political wing in the Republic. The infamous Mikhail Sokolov has forged an ironclad political machine out of the far left, leading its successful operations after Operation The Stage. Scandals shatter the people's confidence in the government and establish an environment of constant pressure on the Republic security forces. However, despite its unity, not all is well in the Communist Party. The cracks between the leaders are invisible in public, but all too apparent behind the closed doors. In the eyes of party insiders, a conflict between Mikhail Sokolov and Ivan Serov's Orthodox faction and Andreas Svendanov and Svetlana Burkina's reformist faction is inevitable. All that remains to be seen is how destructive it shall be to the party very foundation. The right, the passionary organization, is the singular bizarre organization in Komi, a combination of a social club, of a secret society, and a apparatus for political coalition building. Under the wide-spanning umbrella of the passionary are Eurasianists, composite conservatives, monarchists, and other smaller movements, all united solely by desire for a new right-wing government for the Republic. The passionaries are easily the most wide-ranging coalition in Komi, stretching to every possible corner of the right-wing fort, and as of such, paradoxically both prone to infighting and extremely effective at operating within the Republic. Within the passionary, there is someone for everyone, or so it is said. Media outlets controlled by the organization appear to who people ride and held and the Central Coalition is forced to look closer and closer towards passionately affiliated partitions each day. For a republic, destiny lies ahead. Oh, they added a new bit. So we want to go conservative. I was originally going to eye to the left, but I think it's eyes straight ahead. So first this bit, then this bit, then I'll end video next time, do this bit, and then we see. Foundations of sand. Another year has passed and our coalition's Congress has managed to run our republic as well as they can, given our unfortunate situation. However, the cracks are beginning to show, and factionalism within the republic and even our coalition is growing at an incredible rate. If we are to continue our custodianship of Komi and prevent the radicals from taking over, we must act quickly and decisively, put our enemies down. Oh, it has a House of Cards system. Oh, that's gonna be a pain now. Well, the one. So, PP 2 first hack of the day. So, raise confidence in democracy, then interesting. So this is my first time doing Komi. I have no idea what to do with that, so I'm just going to leave it and do all of you. All of you can be put into there, except one of you, which will be put into here. You go all in training. The field marshal shall be Petro Grigorenko. The generals will be Ivan Korolyakov and Yakov Pokus. Pocus. But seriously, this is my first time actually playing Komi, so I have no idea what I'm doing. So the cities we have is this is going to be butchered. Sitkivika. I'm not going to try that again. Slobolskoy, Vilgodotsk, Koltlas, and Vychgotsky. In our two regions of name I will not say again, and Vilgods. Things is the Luftwaffe terror bombing with depressing regularity. The Luftwaffe bombers from the airfields of the Right Commissariat Moscow and fly over the warlord states of Western Russia, bombing everything they can see and severely affecting nearly every aspect of Russian life. As a result, only salvation comes in form of free aviators who strive to intercept every opportunity if not for them, the situation in Russia would be far more dire. They are referencing these people in Surgut, a place for all of us. A list of ideologies represent amongst the ruins of Russia is long, yet it still has its outcasts and lost ideologies. Those people who could not find a home amongst the ruins, those who have been cast out because of ideas too radical or alien. They have come here. As a result, Komi is one of the most diverse political environments on Earth. It's also one of the most dangerous ones on Earth, because you put a bunch of ideologies that won't work together all in the same room. It's most likely they'll collapse in on the clash of shadows. The Republic is afflicted by the scourge that makes itself plainly evident. If one bothers to look behind the curtain of the various movements occupying Svidietka, the legion of manipulators, radicals, and would-be shadow masters afflict the Republic like a pox. Their influence drives much of Komi society. The parliamentaries move on their orders. The National Assembly carries out their machinations, and every day democracy spirals towards a final crescendo of crashing point. And the Svidietka arsenal, beneath the city of a place I won't name again, lies a practical treasure trove of Soviet technologies and weaponry. Vats and canisters of lethal revenge weapons were stored before the front collapsed, and they have found new uses amongst the defenders of the Republic. The gas is potent and able to scorch the land of our enemies is an effective tool, but those who control the arsenal wield a disappropriate amount of influence. So we've got a bunch of mustard gas and biochemicals, basically. Were the Umbrella Association. Was it the association? The Umbrella, what it was. Yeah. I think I'll press the left. The Custodian. The workday of Nikolai Vorosensky passed in an unbearable, soul-crushing yet in no way carefree routine. Only having reached the threshold of the presidential residence with his leisurely steps, the president was immediately caught in the intrigues and schemes of Pahomie politics, dealing with the chaos that engulfed the newborn republic. Chaos in which he, no less than the radicals he despised. In a short moment of distraction, Vosnesky could not help but indulge himself in reminiscence about the early days of the Republic, a time when everything seemed so easy, so achievable. The appalling crowds in the speech hall, the lowered Soviet flag, the cheering demonstrations of a new era of Russian democracy. They looked so vivid yet so dissident. With his new reality, idealistic memories of the birth of the Republic were darkened by the images of Sandarov and a Janus face and a smug creature, accompanied by Suslov, the Mephistopheles in flesh, all sitting next to him on the round table and waiting for their share of newly found state. He held and waiting for him. He held nothing but contempt for them, but even being charitable to his past actions, he was honest, at least to himself, that his own role in enabling communists in their corruption of a young democracy. Perhaps all of it could be done differently. The Republic didn't have to surrender to communist demands in exchange for a false sense of security. It didn't have to welcome havens for the pitiful scum who found no place for themselves but in Sitka. I can't even say it. Whether what could be done, it is much too late. The past was the past. All that matters was that Wozniacki had to carry his inevitable burden alone, clumsily maneuvering the webs of the enveloped Komi. The sounds of gunfire behind the window helped to sober his reflection, sighing in response to the habitual barbarity he grew used to long ago. Wozniacki took a folder in the bottom and put on his coat, leaving the residence. He took a long way to his house, to the opposite side of the road where another street fight occurred. Is it still worth it? It has to be. Lucian crisis ended. But you here. Got more troops this time. But you here, too close to the border. Eventually I will have to put some troops there. The Peacemaker. The meeting was planned. Ivan Morozov were discussing various topics with several of the more right-wing members of the Democratic Coalition. The discussion of the future cabinet positions went fine, with Morozov mostly satisfied with the various compromises made. He had managed to squeeze in a few more candidates from his own party, the Union of Young Reformers. He discussed upcoming campaign strategies, seeing which districts would have more or less funding from which party, and working to discuss ways to penetrate some of the more radical districts. Morozov was not surprised when the mention of political radicals derailing the meeting. Those communists going to tear down all the progress we're making. who made in the name of their so-called People's Revolution popular my ass. Pardon my language. Our Democratic coalition is the only thing keeping Komi from falling to wannabe despots, explained one politician. And it seemed many of those present agreed with him. He continued, and what is Voznesky's doing, huh? He's culling with them, the DSNP. He and the destroying this coalition, and I won't stand for it. This could get out of hand. A fracture in the coalition would seriously damage their performance in the elections, allowing the radicals to gain power. Morozov had to do something. Friends, colleagues, I understand your fears. Truly, I do. I myself am wary of Nevsky's weak stance against extremism. However, endangering the coalition unity is not what the Republic needs. We must instead look at our alternatives. Morozov paused briefly. Voznesky has led the Republic for some time, and Komi has grown considerably under his leadership, despite the bombings. However, Komi, I feel, may need someone new in charge. Someone who can truly heal Komi and its most infectious disease. Elections are soon, my friend. Soon, friends. We stand for democracy, don't we? Morozov had been thinking about the elections a lot recently. An idea of becoming president was becoming more and more seductive either way. It seems his colleagues were pleased by his little speech, and it seemed disaster has been averted for now. If we wish to see the sun, we must weather the coming storm. Wiser words were never said. Alright, time to press the left. I'm trying that. The 10-sec ball. The defender. Svetlana Salina looked down at the stuffed papers on her desk. As the light flickered once more, she barely noticed instead of running finger along the neatly written note in one margin. Future mayoral candidate, it said, next to a grainy photo of a smiling woman. She nodded to herself. She would be perfect. Another name went down on the list she was assembling. Another person to contact, to fund, to align. One more for endless list of personnel that the governing coalition employed to keep the Republic running. A thought flickered through her mind. An image of her combined proposal for an appointment. What a government that would be, free of radicals and subversives, free of corruption, dedicated to the Republic over all else. Men and women who knew above all that there was a greater good to work towards. As she thought the list of to the side and looked absently to the now cold cup of tea that was sitting forgotten on the other side of her desk, she wondered just how her personal path has ended her here. Her transformation from young decadent partygoer that she presented so much to a dedicated public servant. It did not matter. She decided it was merely a matter for a record to be consigned to many memories. As always in personal development and politics, the true important thing about was the end and now the future. It will all pay off someday. Modern burger, you see it all the time. Assassin strikes Hitler. The Paragon. The door swung smoothly to the side of Anatoly, crept into the house, slowly letting out a terrified breath. Clutching the pistol at his side, he advanced down the hall, ignoring the quiet chatter of the bodyguards in the other room. They wouldn't dare disturb their master while he slept. He hoped, he prayed, even as he reached the last door. A plain wooden finger wrapped his shaking head around the knob, and Tolly felt a small smile creep onto his face. This is much easier than expected, wasn't it? All he had to do was shoot an old sleeping man in the head, and it would be done. The Republic would be free of a devil. And Tully entered the small bedroom. Winning in the dark, he raised his pistol at the dark mass on the bed. First shot, Tully in the hand. Next, the knee. He squealed in pain as he snapped his gaze towards the darkened corner the shots had come from, nauseatingly rocking his stomach as he met the gaze of the target, sitting comfortably on the leather chair. "Come on," Mikhail Soslov intoned, barely above a whisper. "Surely you didn't think no one ever attempted to kill me before?" And totally opened his mouth to speak. Tajir and famed Shadow Master of Komi, all that excited his throat was a whisper. Suslov shook his head. "A shame. Usually, Gumliov's lambs are made of sterner stuff." He pulled the trigger again, and Anatoly saw no more. Suslov started in it from his chair, sliding a still smoking gun back into his jacket, gaze fixed on his bodyguards as he burst into the room, leaving on the steps of the National Assembly. Guliov hasn't gotten the message yet, it seems. Perhaps another demonstration is in order. Foundations of sand. Let's sleep before bed. The last years of Vosnetsky, they spelled Vosnetsky wrong, our ruling coalition is headed by the most left-wing Democratic faction, the Vosnetskys, under Nikolai Vosnetsky. Under their guidance, Komi has seen significant improvement, rebuilding from the bombs, lowering the death toll, and attracting refugees to our towns and cities. Overall, all is not quite well. All is not quite well. Vosnetsky ties to the far left, especially Andrei Zandov, are quite alarming, and a source of consistent discomfort among the more conservative members of the coalition. Time will only tell if the Vosnetsky will be able to keep their position at the head of the party, or if another wing will take their place. So the day of the National Assembly. The National Assembly of Komi Republic is a place of intrigue, deception, and thinly veiled threats disguised as a compromise. Despite it being a well-functioning heart of the Republic body, it was filled to the brim with different shades of plague, clashing within amongst a zealous left, a popular right laid ruling centre coalition, the DNCP, DSMP, the SMR, and the PSD were the three truly democratic parties in the assembly. While they could not be more different in terms of their policy, all of them sat together, and all of them hated the extremist wolves eyeing their seats hungrily from the shadow. On the border between the SMR and PSD seats sat two assembly members looking a bit more alert than usual at the new election of bills was being brought up on the floor. From the SMR, there was a tail yet daintily looking woman, perhaps a bit older than she looked. From the PSD, a stocky, brash, well-built young man sat next to her. They both thought similar things at the debate happening, listening intently for anything intolerable. As much as they hated the extremists, they loved the Republic and loved her democracy. After a member of the Passionary went on an agitated, boisterous rant which disturbed half the assembly, the two eyed each other. People like him would destroy the Republic, they both said in their glance. Exchanged expression, a small mutual nod, they introduced themselves to each other. A place for all of us. The visionary. The wind blew cold through Komi night as the shadow trampled through the field. The snow clutched beneath his feet until he reached the ideal spot. The night was clear and silent, perfect for his suspicious observation. He placed the long case in the field, withdrawing a tripod, definitely expanding it and attaching the telescope on top. His nighttime adventures were a risk, of course. Suslov had expressed concern for his safety, fearing assassination attempts from the Passionary. But even Comrade Suslov's men did not know of the excursions, how dangerous it could be. Glancing into the telescope, Andrei Zandov mind wandered far away from the lights of that snake pit of intrigue and violence. He found serenity in the gentle movements of the stars. Perhaps out here lay hope of the beings who overcame their petty infighting and defeated their worst qualities. An example of humanity to follow into a new age. Freedom from want, freedom from conflict, and freedom from ignorance lay within the grasp of humanity, and what it was such a shame that it had to be squandered for so long on a petty conflicts, and the last decade of great battles within darkness, progression of aggressive Germany. But soon the time will come, his vision will guide Russia from the world into a brave new era of and mankind will be free. The way forward lies in our ideals, hands, whatever. If you don't know, if you try playing as Zandrov, you listen. Basically, that's basically also Hydrix's successor. The Seeker. Svetlana Burkina smiled currently for the fifth time at the fifth representative, shook his hand, promised a bright future working together, and stepped away for the fifth time. They never asked her anything about herself. She noticed only her father, your father, would be so proud, they said, if only he could have seen you now, to which she'd smile and agree, promising to follow up in dear old Nicholas's footsteps. She wasn't so ignorant. This meeting was a productive one, though not for the reasons the rest of the Communist Party thought. It wasn't a mere get-together for her. No, this was a valuable opportunity to learn who the true threat in Komi were, but more importantly, how they could be taken down. The man who had just spoken to her, she noticed, was some grim satisfaction, was a coward. The second she disagreed with him on a minor dispute, he'd back down and apologize. Probably someone who, like that, was a follower, not a leader. Several of had watched her carefully as expected, a fearsome man for sure, but he hadn't considered that his prey would be watching him just as carefully. What she took up the most interest in was the man's apparent disregard of common communist theory. The way he spoke reminded Svetlana of a little Nazi propaganda he had to suffer through in the past. The party was nearing the breaking point, she concluded, and at the end of the night, Zendrov and Suslov, for all their attempts to enforce unity, could not control everyone. Several would be the first to go, she reasoned, but certainly not the last. A new rising star in the party would be a welcome sight for many, a reassurance that the glory days of the Union were not all lost. So Svetlana Burkina would be that, but unlike her dear father, she wouldn't let Russia slip through her hands. A new player entered the game. That's interesting. Another light and thick Tsitka. Yuri Andropov, sighted as he lazily tapped the butt of his cigarette against the ashtray, watching with no real interest as the ashes dripped the bottom of a small glass container. Oh, pardon me. Yet another late night at the office. The light pattered on of the rain against the window drew his eyes too dark to the dark, muggy streets of Sitka outside. He rose to his feet and brought the cigarette to his lips, and as he surveyed the city, quiet, like too quiet for his taste. Sometimes young men, Communist Party, whispering in each other's ears that a caring world would comment on Mikhail Suslov's secretary, his paranoia. The party was a safe place, they whined. There were all comrades there, right? Perhaps he could just loosen up a little. Usually they'd shut up when Yuri tapped them on the shoulder and asked them if they wanted to share their opinion with the class. Then they know who the real shadow of the party was. Andropov snickered at the memory and shook his head. His job wasn't all just scaring dumb kids. It was to do what was needed to be done to show party stability or to disappear. Here, whoever had earned Suslov's ire. The latest list of names to investigate Mikhail had given him was, all things considered, damn boring. for the most part. One name, however, caught his attention: Svetlana Burakina, who he had met the kid a few times. She remembered blowing some smoke out the window. She spoke like Yuri imagined a princess would, all prim and proper, smiled as she shook his hand, but works it how he knew she was dangerous. Her father was like that too, a wonderful man if you were on his good side, but there was some venom hidden inside his eyes, and he saw that behind hers too. As Yuri watched, a bolt of lightning lit up the city. For a moment it almost seemed like it was fire. He wondered then if it was the sign of what Svetlana could do. He shook his head and tossed the cigarette into the ashtray. Just another threat or an unexpected ally. I think that's supposed to say late night, not another light. So she gained slightly more influence. I'm gonna wait. Okay, so there is. While the assembly was on the break of discussing policy, the now acquainted SMR deputy Alina Kozlin and PSD deputy Yegori Yahontov got to know each other more decently well, and happened to agree on some aspects of policy together. Despite having vast differences, both of them held distaste of the far left and the far right, and both of them were elected under similar circumstances. Under both of them were under similar stakes. They were becoming fast friends despite sitting on opposite sides of the aisle. So, Yevgeny, Yevgeny, do you really think Miss Stalina's economic recovery plan is different than Yosnevsky's? Yosnevsky's was left-wing populist who would let Zandarov and his goons walk over him and influence his economic policy. Stalina would never let radical leftism taint her economic policy. Both of them gave a small chuckle and continued debating. They all knew it wasn't serious, and it was more guile than individual abilities. With the comfort of each other, they did sit in the same caucus. After all, it wouldn't hurt to know the ideas of your ally. As Assembly began to clear out for break, the two remained behind, sitting together, growing even quieter. Hey, Ellen, why are you working with me? Doesn't Morozov see Stalina and my power as a borderline despot? Well, she said after a pause, that doesn't matter to me. We both stand for the Republic. The trailblazer. Ivan Serov watched the streets of Komi from his apartment, a frown creasing in his face as he watched the sheep mill about below. He hadn't slept well in weeks, and so he had developed this habit of watching the city below, pondering the existence. He was a socialist, he reasoned, and always amongst the most loyal and entirely of the NKVD. So why did he have so many doubts of late? He was always proud of Russian nationalistically, but surely that was merely because of their former status as a great socialist power, and certainly not in the same way as the Italians or even Germans. He shook his head. No, he was better than them, wasn't he? But why shouldn't one be devoted to their home above all else? Perhaps the Union wouldn't have fallen if they had fought with the same brutal pride as the Nazis did. Several felt churning of doubt in his gut, one of that had only intensified over the past weeks. Perhaps he wasn't wrong. Maybe, just maybe, it was Suslov and Zandrov were misguided about such questions. Maybe Serov could teach them this new idea. A smile crossed his face, and he considered, and for all times, first time in what seemed like many years, the churning of his gut lessened. He would leave the Communist Party and Komi with it. To greatness, he stormed to his desk, placed a fresh piece of paper, a timer to it, and began. With this, he would change socialism forever. An innovator or a madman? How many is he on the political spectrum? No idea. He's not even on here. Yeah, I have no idea what the hell this guy is. No. Radio detection gained. Now disseminated radar. The Crusader. The speaker atop the stage smiled warmly as his audience. They had been so leery, so unreceptive, that he was the first introduced Eurasianism. Oh, that's what he was making up. He created the entire idea of Eurasianism. Had never quite caught on in the Komi Republic, however, apart from in his own clique. But no, this is a separate guy. It wasn't that he or his ideas were unknown qualities in the Republic, quite the opposite. His infamy was likely the reason that the evening lecture had been boycotted by Komi leftists and Democrats. And yet, despite everything, he still stood facing a packed theater, one that was conspicuously devoid of hecklers. Often, he said, moving into the end of the lecture, I am thus interrogated. Lev Nikolaevich, you call yourself a righteous, yet you advocate anything but very thing all true right to stand for. You do not stand for the church, for supremacy of Russia, for the glories of the Tsar. Then what then can you possibly offer for the people of Russia? The audience remained silent, but it was once silence of rapt attention. The speaker continued. People of Theatrika, you have heard me speak at length tonight of the concept that I do not expect any of you to grasp. Eurasia, passionately, the will of change. Sorry. What was I? Okay. The world's changed. You came here expecting to hear an alternative to the corrupt and ineffective democracy imposed upon us. I will confess that I am more comfortable explaining myself through the written word, but for the benefit of those most similarly inclined, allow me to elucidate my message as clearly and as I can. The room remained silent, and the speaker knew he had them. I envision a power to eclipse any that has preceded it, a continent spanning project wherein the greatest strain of the motherland's ethnicities are forged into an individual whole, cap- capitulating only to the singular authority of the state, not a weary old empire where a single ethno-sized power only to stagnate and fall upon a mightier foe, but a supranational entity, the summation of all that has come before it. It will not merely be the Russians and their strength, but the Ukrainians, the Kazakhs, the Mongols, and the Buryats, and so many more, all of us inheritors of a combined legacy, standing together under a single banner, the Eurasian state. As the audience exploded into applause that was more than merely respectful, someone leaned over to his friend and asked innocently, Pavel, what was the guy's name again? Gumilov. Lev Nikolaevich Gumilov. Oh, so the guy's a Eurasianist. I think it's supposed to be the E part, but it says led by Igor Shafanovich. He's also leading the RMP party, so that's probably incorrect. Maybe we'll see him soon, who knows. New friend, Sasha, still looking for her old friend, continued through the woods. She was still having some difficulty hearing from her mother, her one remaining ear, and they were still severe enough that she had not yet caught any prey. Hunger was building. Looking for a safe place to rest for a moment, Shasta found it under the arms of a pine tree. It was only once there she realized she was not alone. Across from her, she could see two men crouched over a deer tail. We won't find anything to eat if this keeps up, she heard one of them, the older man, in which the deep voice said. Shut up, the younger one replied. I told you, I am no tracker, I am a farm. He suddenly stopped speaking, and he saw Shasha out of the corner of his eye. Suddenly he stood. She met his eyes and saw no malice in them. After a long moment, the young man reached into his pocket, withdrawing several strips of cured meat, which he threw in front of her. Feeling her hunger, Sasha moved to devour them. Before years of rigid training stopped her in her tracks. Look at that, Pavel, the older man said. A trained dog. He laughed as he approached her, the sound reminding her better times, caressing her neck. He directed her towards his betrayal, picking up the offering of jerky to her as he did. She quickly ate what was ordered and knew what to do next. Sniffing the deer trail and looking in the direction of the smell. "See, Pavel!" the older man exclaimed. "A tracking dog! Lead on!" At the command, Sasha catered into the forest. The humans followed behind. She might not have found her old friends, but she had at least found new ones, and that was enough to make her happy again. Every dog goes to heaven, which is based off a movie. The line "Dogs, every dog goes to heaven" is a movie made by Don Bluth. Here's Igor Shaparovich. Igor Shaparovich, the organizer, looked at the window as the sun slowly crept into the room. An uninvited intruder. Candlelight spilled over his drafting table as it glowed. Lost shutter. Shaparovich puffed his lips to blow it out, then stopped. Now was not the time for that. Now, not when he was approaching completion. He took out his pencil and leaned closer to the drawing board. This particular street was difficult to optimize, and it might be better to remove it entirely. Erase a hand. He wiped off the map much better. He adjusted his glasses, discarding his pencil and pen for a pen. Then he took a step back, seeing his work in its entirety for the first time since the last night. To Shaparovich, it was beautiful. Ordered roads with its sidewalks and pavements made precisely to accommodate not only people's Sirditska, but also the composite for its population growth. Everyone in Sirditska could get from one point to another in less than an hour travel time. He put the tips on his pen onto the drawing board. Other than the National Assembly had mocked him before, the lines on two streets intersected. He reached out for his eraser, finding it in his pocket. After a few moments of frantic scrambling, he erased the obstacle, rearranged them to bear with other weight. One incoming, one outcoming. This proposal might not get anywhere, considering the political nature of the Republic, but the work was its own reward. Now, onto the sidewalks, and onto this pavement, as he drew in his lines and dotted the points along in which them streetlights all have done. Safarovich decided to test his creation. The walk from the home to the National Assembly was 15 minutes. He had mind ticked 2 meters a second. Average walking speed 9-10. Then 10 minutes. Now for the next step. Much property destruction would be involved in the realization of the plan that he had laid the original designs on top of his. Taking out his notebook, he began to count sufficient measurements. So he's the architect from Megatropolis. That's what he is. He is an architect similar to the one from Megatropolis. I guess I talk about our current position. So we got as head of government Mikhail Rodionov, Prime Minister of Australia resides. As Minister of Defense Yegor Ligovichev. For Minister of Finance Leonid Kantorovich. For Minister of Foreign Affairs Vyacheslav Milosev. Raise confidence in democracy. The region, cold winds blew ships, sending cannons set high upon the altar. Her eyes and those of her child stared down at the supplicant kneeling before him, or them, his lips constantly moving in quiet prayer. O heavenly King, the Comforter, the Spirit of Truth, who art everywhere and filled all things, treasury of blessing and giver of life, come and abide in us and cleanse us from all and every impurity and save our soul, O good old one. Sergei Taboritsky, he paused and shivered as the fright draft swept over him. It bite, sending chills down his old bones. Holy God, holy mighty, holy immortal, have mercy on us. Holy God, holy mighty, holy immortal, have mercy on us. Holy God, holy mighty, holy immortal, have mercy on us. The cold pressed in, piercing the immaculate old Tsarist uniform he wore. Its golden colour felt like a manacle of frozen iron round his neck, and the fine silk lining did nothing shield him from the winter's bite. He grimaced, gritted his teeth, and opened his eyes, lifting his head to stare directly into the eyes of the Blessed Virgin. In response, he felt the flames of faith roar to life inside him, again driving the cold from his body. He grasped at the sudden intensity of heat, but stayed perfectly still. There was a presence behind him, a pair of reassuring hands on his shoulder, gentle whispers in his eyes, moisture gathered in his eyes as he closed them again, recognizing the familiar sensation from what it was. Keep him safe, O Lord, he uttered, speaking directly to the presence. Watch over our blessed sovereign. Return the Tsarevich prince to us when the time comes. Give me the strength to carry out my sacred task, to defeat our enemies and restore the lands for which it should be. I beg you, stand with me, O Lord, and help me save Holy Russia. God saves Russia. So if you watched that Swinsball video about a Torbovsky Russia, you know he goes mental and kills himself. The last years of the Voznesky speak of Svetlana. Svetlana Stalina, daughter of the famous Soviet bureaucrat Yosef Stalin, is one of the most valuable assets in crafting an effective means of keeping radicalism down. Their plans were through often ruthless and prioritizing effectiveness are generally excellent and proving good foil to our rival constant scheming, keeping her loyal and opening our parties up to more of her influence is considered by many to be a critical part of keeping our hegemony, despite several of the more principled Democrats' complaints after her alleged authoritarianism. Approaching her can surely only help us. The party composition. Our party composition. One inevitability in Komi's politics is that the status quo will change radically at a moment's notice. The sadness of this factor, however, is that at the moment the status quo seems to be shattered. The shifting radically away from our ruling Varanasi faction. Like it or not, simply virtue being the public face of the Democratic faction of the Republic, public support has been eroded by scandal after scandal, be they or constructed by our politicians' enemies. Public support, even fleeting and ephemeral, has as late shifted either in the Socialite extreme left or more moderate liberal conservative factions. Those for our coalition partners. As our partners seem to undergo a period of self-reconstructing, it is critical to ensure the political capital is more or less maintained by the ruling party, and the current president isn't challenged too heavily. As whether the solution is limiting our most credible coalition partners or simply standing and letting our partners shrivel away is entirely up to the whims of the president. We need to accept other factions. The ghost of Vietka. I mean, stop trying to say it. Sergei prepared himself for the day's events. He had set himself up on the roof of a building across the Komi lecture hall and had to execute his father's plan. Sergei and his men had hired to assassinate a group of politicians. They were proving a significant obstacle for their employers' plans. First part of the plan involved the release of a small amount of tear gas from the Svitka arsenal. Yeah, I said it. Into the hole. How they had managed to get hold of it, he had no idea. After the hole was evacuated, he would make move. He would take the first shot from the position. His co-conspirators would set up other buildings and finish the target as the distracted guard. Sergei made for his radio and hoping he would get the final checks before things began. But it was interrupted by Yuri, his voice briefly cutting in. It lasted only a moment and nothing was said, but he could swear he could hear a scream in the distance. Yuri, come in. What's going on? He demanded. After he got in return was silence. Something was wrong. Looking through the scope, he could tell the security had not been tipped off. They were too relaxed. Across the street roof of the lecture, he could see Andrei. With the capsule, all seemed to be going fine, and on his end, but he knew things were falling apart. Once again, he looked across at Andre, but this time he noticed something in the shadow booth access door. A figure looked over Andre's shoulder. The person was tall, dressed in an old uniform and winter coat. The figure pulled a knife out of his belt and plunged it into his partner's throat. Perhaps he could react. The figure was gone. Before he could react, the figure was gone. He got up to abandon his clothes, collected his things, and managed for the door. However, before he got far, he began to choke. The tear gas from the arsenal flooded the floor. As he coughed and tried to cover his eyes, he felt the kiss of cold steel on his back. Life in Sivka goes on. So, a assassination attempt foiled. That's good. So Castro does his thing, burning a hatchet. Today, members of all three major Democratic parties concluded a closed assembly meeting to discuss issues with all parties faced. While the discussion was fierce, and there were plenty of times where certain delegations almost stood out and left entirely, sound conclusion was reached, and a plan was formed for the survival of democracy in the upcoming election. Cheers, handshakes, and applause roared throughout the assembly. Ellen and Yevgeny were there. I am not too partial to Morov's approach to reconciliate with the radical and military policies, and I'm not too happy about Stalina's dodging question about gerrymandering, but we're still here, no? Yevgeny nodded, and a smile formed on both of their faces. With a friendly debate, a mutual agreement finally came handy today when discussing law and order policies. Elaine defends the PSD's actions managed to keep many of his SMR from walking out in protest. A mutual consensus was seemingly agreed on, one without any spoken words or initiative. The consequence of this was the consensus of stability and the consensus of holding true to what had made our republic special. We would never stoop to level of the Tsar or the Marshal. He would always look to the people and the president. Even if compromise had to be made, our coalition and system would survive. Despite their differences, they would stay the course. Okay. Suppress more of the left and suppress more of the right, and then more PSD. build more schools. Quite quiet in the front. See what's happening in the Western world. Malacca looks to be going to be under anti-Japanese forces. That looks to be it. Baratia seems to have now been given a chance to win against all its fights. Crush the right. Is an innocent conspiracy. Is Alexei Kosygin really either lost Tsarevich Alexei? As Sergei Tabritsky reads the title of the paper of his death, he felt a horrible, painful throbbing in his mind, like some sort of artillery shell still pounding against his skull. Not the rest of the article was any better. The same sloppy writing and incompetent research as before, but that's not what was pissed. But that's not what pissed him off. No. Oh, what pissed Darby off was the writer. It was the audacity to compare the Jew-loving communist this to Tsarevich Alexei. Rogov, where's this garbage? The assistant looked up at his boss, his once calm face replaced with fear. It is the daily paper, sir. I got it for you. Move away here. It is a tabloid that is insulting the great name of Tsarevich Alexei, and you dare bring bring it here in front of me? I'm sorry, sir. It is not you should be apologizing to. It is Tsarevich Alexei, the poor boy who you have slandered, those socialites and Jews trying to associate that monarch-hating mongrel with the great Tsarevich, and you be ashamed. But by God, they truly are crafty. Do you know that? I never would have thought of it. He trailed off, his eyes turning directly on Rogov. But sir, Rogov stammered, you did think this on purpose, didn't you? But no, of course not. No, get out. Get out right this instant. You Satanist. With a speed almost unheard of from him, so Taborski, he nearly lunged for his assistant, who had escaped from his chair and began running out the office door. Leave! Screamed Taborski. Leave and never come back. Sounds like he has problems. The joke is that he has mental issues. Turkish government negotiate with spring protest. Speak with Svetlana. Her influence is growing. Our paramilitaries report. Straight from our paramilitary commander, Petro Grigorenko, comes the latest observation of the eyes on the street. The previous report have not given us much confidence in our abilities to control the ever so important avenues and roadways of the Komi Republic, and the report is no different. More and more the paramilitaries under the control of Suslov and Gomilyov march onto the streets, controlling warehouses, voting stations, and even entire neighborhoods of Svitga, whilst our forces falter and shrill in both the control of democratic aligned districts and the ability to defend what we have left. We must do something about this now, before the average citizen of Komi cannot turn his or her eyes without seeing a radical damage in our democracy. Conversations with Stalina. Woznevsky sips on his tea, a little sweet for his taste, but he keeps the smile hanging in his face. A cool-faced Stalina is always good to keep a little contract with conventional partners in any case. Helps with the banter. Not that there's much to talk about these days. Besides the endless politics of the Republic, teacups, arrangements, as the storm of Russia rages around them. Do you miss the old days then, Svetlana? Before he'd quite ready to word leave the mouth to mild regret. Selina's face stayed closed. She looked at her tea and twitched, flickered across her otherwise controlled features. I wouldn't say so, no. The past is still a different time. Different, but rosier than the present. I certainly won't miss the day of fighting over bills when this is all over. Oh, Nikolai, this isn't fighting, this is just, my father used to call it, war without war. And look where we've gotten this republic by fighting this hard. How far we've come. If this is how democracy works, I'll stick by it. Selina smells almost wolfish, and I know you old fox. You will like it here as much as I do. You'll die before the next bill to argue down or push up. Woznevsky laughed back at her. You truly do know me. Perhaps I still underestimate you, Miss Selina. Yes, perhaps is health left in this place. Even if this old fox dies, Komi will struggle to breathe. Hot tea and warm words. That's happened. That's also happened. Yes, now it's split 54 each. Get a whole bunch of those. Gotta show some equipment. That's all to stay alive. PSD. Yeah, the PS that's going up. One more time. More equipment arrived. That's happened. As expected. That's happened. More of our equipment arrived. And militaries have been done. Direct action. The house burned behind them. As well, all houses do the time. Screams are cut short by the backs of gunfire. Mercenary swift. A gunman stretched side of the arid smokestack that pours from the gaping hole in the house's remains. Those with a little more composure hold the sobbing townsfolk and the screaming widow away from the scene. If she wasn't a widow before, she certainly is a widow now. Officer Popov takes a whiff of the cigarette, hacking at his fingers tremble. He waiting for someone, and that someone is late. Lateness is not a quality of the Voznesky Brigade regular appreciates, as the distant screams recent recede. His acquaintance swims into view, grabbing irreparably at the dust of his veil. Commander Kozlov makes his way to the burning frontage. He kicks aside a brick and nods briskly, and the two of are down to business. There is little to discuss. Popov, the commander, glares into the distance, pointing southeast of the jury's position. You shoot 2 men here, we kill a couple more. We'll do the same the time next week. Not what I was talking about. We're hitting those Saranagis fucking bullshies in our own neighborhoods. So what about the others? Popov is venomous. His searing gaze is directed towards all the communists, or perhaps focused on Koslov. We need to spread out. This does nothing to the health of the Republic. Koslov brushes his ragged beard. His men were gladly he'd go where there is game to be had. But control is thin enough in the district as it is. It is with the expenditure. Will their paymasters in the Parliament be happy? He shrugs. It will in the end be him who decides, not some wig-suited corpse. Democracy is built to the ground on the grounds in Komi, even when it is built bullets by bullets. We will expand operations. Post-war combat support equipment. Now let's do this before I finish this video. The affairs of National Assembly. As much as our detractors enjoy condemning our republic for its excess of political intrigue and the occasional bout of violence, there is more to Komi than scheming and intriguing. The policies of the National Assembly, while bitterly contested, it as all things are, a critical element for thousands of people who are affected by the government machinations each year, opening the National Assembly for the year, appointing new party whips, and assuring that everything functions as normal shall ensure that the functions of the Republic institutions are as strong as ever. Additionally, will give us opportunity to cut through persistent tradition, changing long-standing laws, improving life from the multitude of citizens of the Republic through the tactical excesses of the state of power, backed by the power. Everything becomes possible. And learn the prototype anti-air and street forward. Yeah, that's good. And that. Let's suppress the left, then the right. Improve computing machinery and industry management 1. The 1962 budget. The 1962 budget of the Republic is a critical perceived document providing the comprehensive list of appropriations for each and every program administered by the government of Komi. However, even with the ruling coalition dominance of the National Assembly, its pressure is not entirely guaranteed. Historically, compromises have been necessary to pass budgets, as even parties within the coalition have different ideas of what should be funded. Budget thusly has become exercise in pork barrel spending, and deputies are given appropriations for pet projects to keep them loyal. With the increasingly unpopularity of the President Kwasniewski, however, the National Assembly could possibly not be qualified by the usual where did I forget? Not be quelled by usual tricks. Numerous advisors and allies of the President have hinted to him that getting the government to side him will be much less effective during his term. Additional means may be necessary to ensure that I'm recording! Okay. I have to finish the video soon. Additional means to be necessary to ensure that the Republic gets what it needs in terms of funding. So I'll leave this video there. I didn't go as far as I want to do, but things don't always go in our favor sometimes. So I'll leave it up there. So next time we'll do more of a budget. Go down the finish all of these. Go down the eyes straight ahead. And finally finish the interlude. So, hope to see you next time, hope to see you again, and goodbye. This has been Mountain Limited, signing off.